Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something that's really making waves in the world of AI and something we've been talking about quite a lot lately. China's making some serious moves and really kind of turning heads. And to help us kind of break this down, we've got a CNBC video and an interview with a CEO of an AI search company. And to give you an idea of what's got everyone's attention, this Chinese lab called Deepseek, they've managed to build these really powerful AI models. But the crazy part is they've done it way faster and cheaper than the big guys like Google and OpenAI. Yeah, it's really quite remarkable. I mean, we're kind of used to seeing American companies leading the charge in AI. Yeah. But Deepseek is showing us that the landscape is shifting a little bit. They've developed these models, Deepseek version 3 and R1, that are actually outperforming some of the big names in the field on various tests, whether it's math problems, coding, all sorts of different tasks. Yeah.
And here's the real mind blower. They did this all for under $6 million in just 2 months. Like you said, the American companies are investing billions and billions of dollars into this. And so when you see a story like that, you have to kind of scratch your head and say, well, how did they manage to pull that off?
Well, part of it could be attributed to the restrictions that the U.S. has placed on China in terms of getting those really high-end computer chips. So DeepSeek had to kind of get creative. They ended up using these less powerful NVIDIA H800 GPUs and figuring out how to really optimize them and squeeze every ounce of performance out of them. It's a real testament to their ingenuity.
So they kind of turned a limitation into an advantage.
It seems that way.
That's fascinating. It's kind of like a David and Goliath situation. You've got this relatively unknown lab, Deepseek, and they're taking on these giants in the AI world.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder what the implications are going to be. I mean, if Deepseek can do this with limited resources, what does that mean for the future of AI development? Are we going to see a kind of a shift in leadership with China potentially taking the reins?
It's definitely something to think about, and especially when you consider that DeepSeek's success is not an isolated incident. This is part of a bigger trend we're seeing in China, where companies are really achieving some impressive results in the AI space, and they're often doing it with less money than their American counterparts.
Yeah, for instance, you've got Kai-Fu Lee's startup, 01.ai. They achieved unicorn status in just 8 months, and they're already generating significant revenue. And get this, they trained their model on just $3 million. Compare that to GPT-4, which is estimated to have cost somewhere between $80 and $100 million to train. That's a huge difference.
It really highlights the efficiency that we're seeing from these Chinese companies. And it's not just the startups either. We're seeing established players like Alibaba. They're making big moves too. They've slashed the cost of their large language models by 85%, trying to attract developers and, gain a competitive edge.
It's becoming clear that China is really serious about AI. I mean, even Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO, he initially thought China was lagging behind, but he's recently admitted that they've caught up significantly in recent months, and we're seeing a major shift in the balance of power here.
Yeah, this whole situation with DeepSeek and some of these other Chinese AI companies, it brings up another really important point, and that's the move towards these open source models. So DeepSeek's model is open source, which means developers can use it, build on it, and modify it all without having to invest in that expensive training process themselves.
Yeah, it's a game changer when you think about it. I mean, you've got the potential for faster innovation and more collaboration. Yeah. Developers, especially the ones who don't have the resources to train their own models, they suddenly have access to this really powerful technology.
It's like opening up all these new possibilities, but it also comes with its own set of questions and concerns, right? If a model from China becomes the global standard, what does that mean in terms of influence and control?
That's a crucial point. The source of these models really does matter. It raises questions about whose values are embedded in this technology we're all using and whose priorities are being reflected. We need to be aware of the potential implications, especially when we think about things like data privacy and security.
Absolutely. And we also have to consider the potential impact on American companies like OpenAI, who've been at the forefront of AI development for so long. How are they going to adapt to this new landscape where they're facing competition from companies that are not only capable, but they're also operating under a totally different set of rules and resources?
That's a question we'll explore a little bit further as we dig into this interview with Arvind Srinivas. He's the CEO of Perplexity, and he offers some pretty interesting insights into these competitive dynamics that are at play and what the future might hold for both American and Chinese AI companies.
So you mentioned Arvind Srinivas, the CEO of Perplexity. He was interviewed for this CNBC piece, right? I'm really interested to hear what he has to say. I mean, he's he's building an AI-powered search engine, so he's got a front row seat to this whole AI revolution.
He does, and what's interesting is he wasn't at all surprised by Deepseek's success. In fact, he thinks that those limitations they faced, especially with accessing those high-end GPUs, might have actually played a role in their ability to innovate.
That's a fascinating perspective. So instead of holding them back, the restrictions force them to find more efficient solutions.
Exactly. Srinivas points out that while American companies were kind of throwing money at the problem, building bigger and bigger models, Deepseek had to be a lot more resourceful. They had to focus on optimizing what they had, and it obviously paid off.
Yeah, it reminds me of that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Hmm.
Sometimes having constraints can force you to think outside the box and come up with solutions that you wouldn't have considered otherwise.
Right, and Srinivas was particularly impressed with some of the technical details that Deepseek revealed in their research paper. For example, they used this technique called mixture of experts, which is known to be really tricky to train, but they managed to do it really efficiently and stably.
Okay, I gotta admit, that one went over my head. What exactly is mixture of experts? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It's a method where you're basically combining multiple smaller AI models, each one kind of specialized in a particular task or domain. You can think of it like having a team of experts, each with their own area of expertise working together to solve a really complex problem.
So instead of one giant AI model trying to do everything, you have a bunch of smaller, more specialized models working together.
Precisely. And the challenge is figuring out how to train these individual models and then get them to collaborate effectively. It's kind of like conducting an orchestra, making sure all the instruments are in tune and playing together harmoniously. And Deepseek seems to have cracked the code on this, which is no small feat.
So not only are they efficient with their resources, but they're also kind of pushing the boundaries of AI techniques. It's pretty impressive.
They are, and there's another technical detail that Srinivas highlighted. They figured out how to use this lower precision numerical format called floating point 8 for training their models. This is something that American companies are still struggling with.
Okay, another technical term for me. What's the significance of floating point 8? Does it affect the model's performance at all?
It does,
Yeah.
but in a positive way. Using a lower precision format essentially means you're using less memory and processing power. It's like compressing a file. You get the same information, but it takes up less space. So this not only saves costs, but it also suggests that they have a really deep understanding of the underlying mathematics of AI.
So it's not just about brute force computing power. It's about understanding the nuances of these algorithms and finding these clever ways to optimize them.
Exactly, and Srinivas made another interesting observation. He believes that Deepseek likely used a lot of publicly available ChatGPT output as part of their training data.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, ChatGPT is everywhere these days. I'm sure there's a ton of data out there that could be useful for training AI models, but wouldn't that mean that DeepSeek is essentially copying ChatGPT?
Not necessarily. Srinivas emphasizes that Deepseek didn't just replicate ChatGPT, they built upon it. They introduced their own innovations and refinements. Think of it this way. If you're learning to cook, you might start by following recipes from a cookbook, but eventually you start experimenting. You add your own spices and techniques to create something new. That's what Deepseek seems to have done. They took an existing foundation and they built something really unique and powerful on top of it.
So they're not just borrowing ideas, they're really adding their own ingenuity to the mix.
Right. And Srinivas also points out that even if American companies stopped publishing their research and sharing those technical details, it wouldn't stop Chinese companies from catching up. They've proven that they can innovate independently.
So the genie's out of the bottle, so to speak. It's not about trying to hold back information. It's about fostering an environment where American companies can continue to compete and innovate.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and Srinivas believes that China has already caught up to the U.S. in terms of matching the capabilities of companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. He even suggests that Chinese PhD students might have access to similar levels of computing power as Deepseek, which is a real testament to the resources that are being poured into AI research over there.
That's a significant shift. It wasn't that long ago that there was this perception that China was lagging behind in AI. Now, the question isn't whether they can compete, it's how this competition is going to shape the future of the field.
And one of the most interesting aspects of this competition is the potential dominance of open source AI models.
Yeah.
Srinivas actually said, once open source catches up or improves over closed source software, all developers migrate to that.
It makes sense if you have access to these powerful tools that are free to use and modify, why wouldn't you? But he also raised some concerns about this shift, particularly when it comes to this potential shift in mindshare and ecosystem ownership towards China. Can you explain what he means by that?
Sure. Mindcare refers to the level of influence and recognition a company or a country has in a particular field, and ecosystem ownership refers to who controls the platforms and the tools and the standards that developers rely on. So Srinivas is basically saying that if open source models from China become the go-to choice for developers worldwide, it can really shift the balance of power and influence in the AI landscape.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about who controls the narrative, who sets the standards, and ultimately who benefits from these advancements.
Precisely, and this brings up the question of trust with Llama. The open source model from Meta, there were these concerns about trusting Zuckerberg, and now with Deepseek, the question becomes, should we trust China? Srinivas argues that trust should be placed in the open source nature of the model itself. You have control over it, you can run it on your own hardware, you can inspect the code, but he acknowledges that it's not ideal for a nation's tech talent to become overly reliant on software that's built by another country.
So it's a really complex issue with no easy answers. On the one hand, you have this potential for greater access and collaboration and innovation with these open source models. But on the other hand, you have these geopolitical concerns and these questions of trust.
Right, and Srinivas also points out that open source licenses can change. What's open today might not be open tomorrow. So this highlights the need for the U.S. to continue investing in its own AI development and not become solely dependent on models from other countries.
So what's the solution? Do we try to restrict or ban the use of Chinese AI models? I mean, that doesn't seem very practical or even desirable in a world that's becoming increasingly interconnected.
Srinivas believes that the focus should be on outcompeting China through innovation.
Hmm.
He sees Meta as a key player in this regard. He thinks they have the potential to create an open source model that surpasses DeepSeek and reclaim some of that mind share for the U.S.
So it's a race then, a race to build the best AI models and attract the best talent.
In a way, yes, but it's not just about being the best. It's about ensuring that AI development is driven by values that align with democratic principles, things like transparency and openness and a respect for human rights.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about OpenAI, the company that's been kind of leading the charge with models like ChatGPT. Where do they fit into this new landscape? DeepSeek's success and the rise of open source in general, it seems to pose a challenge to their current business model, which relies heavily on selling access to their advanced models.
That's true. Srinivas believes that OpenAI will likely lean even more heavily on advanced reasoning capabilities as their main differentiating factor. They seem to be acknowledging that the race for building bigger and more powerful models might be reaching a point of diminishing returns, especially with the emergence of these increasingly sophisticated open source alternatives.
He mentioned OpenAI's O1 model as an example. What is that exactly, and how does it differ from the other models we've been discussing?
It's a model that focuses specifically on reasoning and complex problem solving.
Right.
It's designed to go beyond just generating text or code. It's about understanding and manipulating information in a more sophisticated way. Think of it like this. The earlier models were really good at mimicking human language and churning out text, but they weren't necessarily great at understanding the underlying meaning or applying logic to solve problems. O1 is designed to address that gap.
So it's like moving from a parrot that can repeat phrases to a bird that can actually understand and use language to solve problems.
That's a good analogy. And Srinivas believes that this focus on reasoning is OpenAI's current competitive edge. But as he pointed out earlier, history has shown us that even the most advanced technologies eventually become commoditized. What was once cutting edge eventually becomes widely available and accessible.
So even if OpenAI has a lead in reasoning capabilities now, it's likely only a matter of time before others catch up.
That's what Srinivas predicts. He thinks we'll see a commoditization of reasoning capabilities, similar to what happened with other AI techniques like pre-training and post-training.
What exactly does commoditization mean in this context?
It basically means that a technology becomes so widespread and easy to replicate that it loses its uniqueness and its value proposition diminishes. Think of it like the early days of personal computers. At first, they were really expensive and only accessible to a select few. But as the technology matured and became more standardized, prices dropped and they became commonplace. The same thing could happen with AI reasoning capabilities.
So if reasoning becomes a commodity, what does that mean for OpenAI's business model? How will they differentiate themselves and continue to generate revenue?
That's a good question, and one that OpenAI will have to grapple with. Srinivas thinks they might need to find new ways to create value, perhaps by focusing on very specific applications or industries where their expertise in reasoning gives them a distinct advantage.
So they'll need to find their niche, so to speak.
Exactly. And this is where the concept of model agnosticism comes into play.
Okay, you mentioned that term earlier, but I'm still not entirely clear on what it means. Can you explain it?
Sure. Model agnosticism basically means that you're not tied to any one particular AI model or provider. You're willing to use the best tool for the job, regardless of where it comes from.
So instead of being loyal to a particular brand, you're looking for the most effective solution, regardless of who developed it.
Exactly. And Srinivasa's own company, Complexity, embodies this approach. They're building applications that leverage the best AI models available, whether they're from OpenAI or Google or Deepseek or anyone else.
Sure.
It's about being flexible and adaptable in a rapidly changing landscape.
It's like having a toolbox filled with the best tools from all over the world. You don't limit yourself to just one brand or type. You use what's most effective for the task at hand.
That's a great analogy, and Srinivas believes that model agnosticism could become the norm as the lines between open source and closed source models continue to blur.
So it's not about choosing sides, it's about finding the best solutions wherever they may come from.
Exactly, and that's a healthy approach.
Yeah.
I think it fosters competition and innovation, and ultimately it benefits users by giving them access to the best that AI has to offer.
So we've talked a lot about the companies and the technology, but I want to shift gears a bit and talk about the implications for the average user. What does all this mean for the applications and services we use every day? How will this AI race affect our lives?
That's a crucial question, and Srinivas emphasized the importance of providing both free and paid options for users. He believes that certain basic AI functionalities, like getting quick, factual answers to common questions, should be freely available.
That makes sense. People have come to expect that it's like using a search engine to find a website or looking up a definition. It's become a basic utility.
Right, but Srinivas also sees an opportunity to offer more sophisticated premium features for paid users. This could involve using AI models for things like in-depth research or complex analysis or generating creative content.
So it's like a tiered system. You get the basic stuff for free, but you can pay for access to more advanced features and capabilities.
Exactly. He envisions a future where users can interact with these AI agents that act as research assistants, capable of synthesizing information from vast data sets and providing really insightful summaries and analyses.
It sounds like having a personal AI librarian at your fingertips.
That's a great way to put it. And this shift also has implications for advertisers as AI search engines like Perplexity become more popular. Advertisers are going to have to adapt their strategies. They can't just rely on those traditional methods like keyword-based ads or link placement.
So how do they reach their target audience in this new AI-powered world?
Srinivas believes that the focus needs to shift towards providing valuable information and engaging with users in a more conversational and informative way.
So instead of interrupting people with ads, it's about becoming a source of useful information and insights.
Exactly. It's about adding value to the user experience, not disrupting it.
So we're talking about a pretty fundamental shift in how we interact with information and how businesses reach their customers. It's a whole new world.
Is the AI revolution is not just about technological advancements. It's about a profound transformation in our relationship with knowledge and communication.
And China's rapid progress is playing a major role in shaping this new reality.
Absolutely. Their innovations are pushing the boundaries of what's possible and forcing everyone to step up their game. It's a dynamic and exciting time to be following this field.
So what's next for China in this AI race? What are the potential risks and rewards of open source models, and how can we ensure that AI benefits all of humanity?
Those are great questions and ones that we'll delve into in our final segment.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've seen how China is really challenging the status quo in AI, developing these impressive models with surprising efficiency. And we've explored this rise of open source AI, the potential benefits, but also those questions it raises about control and influence. What I'm curious about now is what's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The AI landscape is evolving so rapidly, it's hard to predict with any certainty what the future holds, but we can certainly explore some potential scenarios and consider the factors that will shape the trajectory of AI development.
Okay, let's start with China. They've clearly made some remarkable strides, and it seems like they're just getting started. What are some of the key things to watch for in terms of their future role in AI?
One thing to keep an eye on is how they navigate the global landscape. Will they continue to focus on developing their own internal AI ecosystem, or will they become more integrated with the global AI community? The answer to that question will have significant implications for the development and adoption of AI technologies worldwide.
And what about the open source movement? And it seems like that's a major force driving innovation right now. How do you see that evolving in the coming years?
Well, I think we'll see even greater collaboration and knowledge sharing within the open source community as more and more developers contribute to these projects. The pace of innovation will likely accelerate. We could see the emergence of even more powerful and versatile AI models that are freely available for anyone to use and adapt.
That's exciting to think about. But it also raises some concerns, doesn't it? I mean, we talked about the potential for a shift in mindshare and ecosystem ownership towards China. How how do we balance the benefits of open source with the need to ensure that AI development is aligned with values that promote freedom and transparency and human rights?
Yeah, it's a delicate balancing act,
Right.
and there's no easy answer. One thing we can do is encourage greater dialogue and collaboration between the AI community policymakers and the public. We need to have open and honest conversations about the potential risks and benefits of AI and work together to develop guidelines and regulations that foster responsible innovation.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the values that guide its development and application.
Exactly. We need to be mindful of the potential impact of AI on society and ensure that it's used for good, not for harm.
And what about the role of American companies like OpenAI in this new landscape? How can they stay competitive and relevant in the face of growing competition from China and the rise of open source?
Well, I think they need to continue pushing the boundaries of AI research and development. They already established themselves as leaders in the field, and they have a strong track record of innovation, but they can't afford to rest on their laurels. They need to stay ahead of the curve, exploring new frontiers in AI and finding ways to differentiate themselves from the competition.
So it's about continuous innovation, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Right. And it's also about finding creative ways to apply AI to real-world problems.
Right.
We've seen some incredible advancements in areas like healthcare and education and transportation. The potential for AI to improve our lives is vast, and American companies are well positioned to lead the way in developing these transformative applications.
But it's not just about the big companies, is it? I mean, we've also talked about the rise of model agnosticism and the idea that the best AI solutions might come from a variety of sources, including startups, research labs, and individual developers.
That's right. The AI field is becoming increasingly democratized with the availability of open source tools and platforms. Anyone with the skills and the passion can contribute to the advancement of AI.
So it's a truly global effort with contributions coming from all corners of the world.
Exactly, and that's what makes this field so exciting. It's a collective endeavor driven by a shared desire to unlock the full potential of AI and use it to benefit humanity.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the challenges and opportunities presented by China's rise in AI, the potential of open source models, and the importance of ensuring that AI development is guided by ethical principles.
Mhm.
I hope this deep dive has given our listeners a better understanding of this complex and rapidly evolving field.
It's certainly a fascinating time to be following AI. The possibilities seem limitless, and the future is ripe with potential.
And as we move forward, it's important to remember that AI is a tool. It's up to us to decide how we use it and what kind of future we want to create with it.
Well said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
And thank you as well. And to all of our listeners out there for taking this journey with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions.